Hi everyone, my name is Krishna, and today I will be discussing the book I chose for my book review assignment in my EDU 415 class. I was given a great opportunity to read the book Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Fun fact about Coates is that he was a guest speaker at Southern Connecticut State University on March 15, 2021. During his time at Southern, he discussed the limited representation and the Black Lives Matter cause to fellow students and staff members. His incredible insight and perspective reflected in the reflection by his audience. For example, a professor at SCSU said, quote, "Coates is probably one of the most important intellectuals in the U.S. today, and the question of violence and vulnerability of Black bodies is super important for us to be thinking about," unquote. I couldn't have agreed more to this statement. Between the World and Me discusses the reality of a Black man in the United States, which unfortunately remains as an unsettling experience. I recommend current and future educators to take the time and read this novel and understand the realities in which Black Americans have to undergo. The rest of this video will discuss a summary of the book along with quotes, critiques, and connections to teaching, course readings, and my personal fieldwork experiences. Summary. This book is written in the form of a letter to Coates' son. After doing future research, his son's name is Samory, who is 15 years old at the time this book was published. The book begins by discussing Coates' upbringing in the ghettos of Baltimore. He had to learn codes of the street to survive, and this was difficult for him. Even today, he still does not understand the codes of the street. Coates also expresses understanding of Black parenting styles after experiencing them himself. Coates realizes that his father was hard on him and that Black parents in general discipline their children a little bit harder because they didn't want to lose their children to police brutality, gangs, or drugs. To quote Coates, he says, "But I know we were afraid of those who loved us most." Page 17. Likewise, the community notion of asserting one's humanity to the world is another aspect of Coates' upbringing. He says, "Being Black was like being naked." Page 17. This is police. This is government. In 1986, the news was drowning and filled with murders. There is an incident where Coates himself was held at gunpoint, where he learned how quickly he could have lost his body. This notion of losing one's body is a common foreign concept threaded within the book. The second part of the book discusses Coates' school life and motivation. He did not necessarily enjoy the school system, but developed a strong motivation to learn at Howard University. It was here where he met Prince Jones. Prince Jones was a friendly and well-liked person at Howard. He died. Let me rephrase that. He was murdered by the police. Here, Coates discusses how Black bodies lack value in the United States, that a Black body can be eliminated at any time. This destruction of the Black bodies, this police brutality, this racial profiling, all leads to the concept of American comfort. To quote Coates, he says, "Police are the destroyers and are not held responsible. Police endure within the authority to destroy your body." Unquote. Americans and the people who consider themselves to be white are so ready to stay comfortable that they don't even realize their racist thoughts and actions, let alone they don't see the structurally racist society that has been built. This is the reality, unfortunately. Coates then discusses the dangers of being a young Black man. He asks that his son needs to be twice as good as the average white person in order to be seen as more than a Black body, which lacks value. This moment shows the realities and horrors that Americans have created and aren't willing to change for. I believe it's time to feel uncomfortable but Coates tells us, or more specifically, he tells his son to learn to struggle more, as the struggle is a reality of being Black, that being Black makes you below someone. Lastly, the book ends with Coates talking to Marble Jones, the mother of Prince Jones, and in this moment he talks about the Dreamers. To quote Coates, he says, "America is a country that is lost in the dream. America is God's handiwork." Unquote. The dreamers won't walk into consciousness because they're unable to feel uncomfortable. With this, the book concludes in Coates asking his son to find joy in his situation, in his community, and to let meaning into his life, even if his life is different than most. Again, he discusses the horrific events that he had experienced as a Black male in America. With that, Coates connects these experiences to the flaws within the discriminated system America runs on. Examples include racist violence, police brutality, and racial profiling. He has extended metaphors such as "lose my body" and "dreamers," which are prominent throughout the text as well. Connections to teaching. On this slide, I will provide several implications of this book for teaching. To begin, teachers need to be aware of these experiences discussed in this book because they have students who have had similar experiences. Students come from all different backgrounds and families and home lives and neighborhoods. We must have strong pedagogy and consider a child's experience and support them. We must do better. In order to do better, we must be educated. This book is a true story. A person actually experienced these events, and they are not alone. As educators, we need to do our research and we need to do better. We need to support our Black students, and we can do this by creating a safe and positive atmosphere in our classrooms. We can provide resources to parents and students. We can encourage school clubs and activities for students to partake in, possibly before and after school. And we can implement opportunities for personal self-reflection as educators. We also need to remember to teach beyond the curriculum. These students are people who experience things just like any other human. We should nurture them and teach them life lessons and useful information beyond what's on a curriculum unit. And lastly, for teaching, we need to hear our students' stories and use these experiences within the classroom. Critiques. Coates provides an extremely real perspective on racial injustices within the U.S., and the choices to write this book to his son and the choice to provide shocking personal experience creates Coates to be a reliable narrator. This is his story after all, so I find it extremely difficult to consider any improvements he could have made. I would like to say that this book is great and that I would wish that Coates can turn this book into a short film one day. This way his story gets heard by more people and his story can be a requirement to watch before becoming a teacher or becoming a police officer or any other job. We need to learn the true history, and a great way to learn about other people's experiences is to read or to watch their stories, because this is the truth, this is reality. I've made 3 connections to course readings. The Tomlinson and Moon text discusses that every student is different and the importance of differentiation within your classroom. This text doesn't directly address differentiation, but it shows teachers that every student is different and every student has baggage they are carrying. We need to diversify our classrooms and provide students with more than one way to be successful. A pirate's life for me. Teach like a pirate. Getting to know your students on a personal level, showing them that you are more than just a grade, and giving them a safe, fun environment sets the stage for learning. In your classroom, you must know how to build rapport naturally and authentically so you can connect with your students. This aspect of teaching is shown within Between the World and Me because we are reading about a young boy who was afraid that he was going to lose his body, which is something that most children shouldn't be afraid of or shouldn't even be considering. But if we create a safe place for them to be, then they will be less panicked. They will be less worried about this thought, and we can support them. Another reading was read at the beginning of the semester that connects to this text is the Lortai reading. This reading discusses how students can become impressed by educators, and it states that when students learn about teaching, then is intuitive and imitative rather than explicit and analytical. It is based on individual personalities rather than pedagogical principles. This concept is reinforced within the text because we need to understand that students carry individual personalities, and we should use them as an advantage when we teach because then the students will be connected and engaged and involved during class discussions. Lastly, I will be talking about my connections to my personal fieldwork experiences. I've worked as a math tutor in a NHPS school for almost 2 years now, where I've seen diversity, differentiation, diverse teaching staff, community field trips, and many teacher and parent communications, which is all great news. My connection with the students I've tutored is a major part of my fieldwork experiences where I can connect to this text because I'm personally seeing, meeting, talking to, and interacting with students. There was one example where a student had lost his father and had decided to tell me about it. Even his teacher didn't tell me about it, but he decided to talk to me about it. And I believe he did that because I had created that sense of community and dedication to that student. And I've showed that student that I've cared about him and his journey in math. I've also seen him as more than a student when I interact with him and I ask him about his day, and I actually show that I care. These experiences and these reactions are major connections to this text because it shows how important it is to see someone beyond what they look like and beyond who they are in the classroom. All of your students will be people who have thoughts, who worry, who are exploring. So as teachers, we need to support that. I recommend anyone and everyone to read this book, as it is only 152 pages, and the lessons within this book will be there for a lifetime. And hopefully with that, we can collectively make change happen. Thank you.